Kia ora, Nisambula Vinaka, Namaste, Assalamu alaikum, Malolele, Talofa, Noya, and warm Pacific greetings, although it's not really that warm here in Auckland. Welcome to our November webinar. And before I introduce our speaker, a few housekeeping rules. In true Pacific styles, our webinars are quite informal, so we welcome a good talanoa at the end of the presentation. And generally, when we schedule this for an hour, it's gone on for an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes. So welcome to stick around as long as you want and have a good chat. We have a Facebook page. We also have a Twitter page and a YouTube account. So I've posted this in the chat. Do check them out. And if you're not a member of the Facebook page, please do join. You can view our latest news, recorded webinars in our Facebook group. I've also posted the flyer for our next webinar, which will be our final webinar for the year. We look forward to seeing you at our December webinar as well. There are two ways in which you can engage with the webinar. You can, if you don't want to ask questions, you can type them out and I'll ask them for you. So you can make me do a bit of work if you want, or you could actually ask them yourself at the end of that, and we'd recommend that. Finally, I request that you keep your mic on mute during the presentation so we do not disrupt the presenter. And now I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce our November webinar president, Dr. Ronald Kumar. Dr. Ronald Kumar is the Director of Research at the Fiji National University and is based in the research office at the Nisinu campus. He coordinates the general functions of the research office, more specifically is charged to coordinate the HDR programs, which are the Masters by Research and the Doctor of Philosophy. Prior to this, Ronald was a part-time educator at the University of the South Pacific, facilitating undergraduate and postgraduate courses in education. And he was also a lecturer in the International Diploma of Tertiary Teaching Program at the Fiji Institute of Technology. Dr. Kumar has served as the principal and chief executive officer of an international primary school in Suva. And he's also served in the government of Fiji, specifically the Ministry of Health, as a secondary school teacher and HOD for more than a decade. His interests are in HDR program supervision and leadership. He attained his Doctor of Philosophy degree from the University of the South Pacific. In his presentation, Ronald will discuss how the HDR student and supervisor relationship could be strengthened during the new normal when universities are generally closed and when students are working on their dissertations via the online mode. He will share his experiences based at the Fiji National University HDR programs and will help explain what other universities in the South Pacific region can do to continue HDR programs during uncertain and turbulent times. Welcome, Dr. Kumar, and we look forward to listening to your presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Jalal, for your kind words. Bolam Vinaka, everyone, and warm greetings from the Fiji National University Research Office. I thank you all for convening today, especially in the late hours of the day. Usually people don't prefer to spend the evening or afternoon hours for webinars and seminars, but I'm thankful for everyone who are here today. Let me just briefly explain to everyone that my seminar is not scheduled for a particular time frame. I usually do the seminar on very informal basis. It's more like a professional development session whereby people can critique, they can do professionally critique, comment, and draw professional arguments and so forth. And I have slotted time for this towards the end. And you'll hardly find any backup from literature in my presentation except for few. In this seminar, I'll be basically using FNU as a case study, how we started to organize HDR programs to be conducted online. Reason being this monster pandemic took the toll on everything, and nobody knew what to do. So we slowly tried to map out our strategies and plans, and get students back to the research culture rather than leaving them on their own, because we all will agree that as an educator, it's our fundamental responsibility to provide as much support as we can, especially for postgraduate courses and higher degrees by research programs. I do not say that we don't provide support to undergraduates. It's equally important, but as far as this presentation is concerned, I will be highlighting on, or talking on what strategies FNU took and implemented to overcome the challenges posed by the pandemic. So let me begin officially on the presentation, and please reserve your questions. You can put it in the chat box, or you can keep it keep the questions towards the to be asked at the end of the session, whereby we can all contribute and see how we can further improve the higher degrees by research programs on online modes. Just a minute, let me share my screen. Please bear with me for a minute or so. Share screen. There you go. Okay. So today I'll be speaking basically on strengthening online HDR student-supervisor relationship, an example of Fiji National University. And the focus of today's presentation is how HDR students and supervisor relationship could be strengthened during the new normal, when universities are generally closed and students are working on their dissertation via online mode. We know that we are recovering from this COVID pandemic, and slowly universities have started opening, but not on full scale. So this is what I mean to say, generally closed, because I agreed to this topic about 3 months ago. So I stuck to that closed, they are generally closed. And secondly, I will be discussing what strategies we can employ to sustain HDR programs during uncertain and turbulent times. We need to be prepared. We need to have succession plans, because nobody knows about this pandemic. Nobody knows about COVID. I hear that there is surge of COVID in a few countries, and it's especially due to the approaching winter in various parts in the north. It may surge, and who knows that we may go back to the situation where there will be a total lockdown and universities may generally close again. So I'll be using experiences from FNU HDR program, which we have mapped out and implemented so that students are not affected and there is continuity in the program, especially for students who are on scholarship, because scholarship contracts to some extent may not be extended for a year, or the students may cannot ask for another year because it deals with financials and budgets and other concerns. So what we intend to do is to inform and keep on pushing the students to continue with their program, and where possible, use the online mode to continue with the program. So I will be basically briefly touching on pre-COVID, COVID, and new normal as a general discussion. And when there wasn't any COVID, now COVID-19, students heavily dependent on campus life, everything was normal, and people relied on traditional setting. There was face-to-face discussions, and students used to go to the supervisors, sit down, yarn, discuss with a cup of coffee, or they make appointments, and everything was basically done face-to-face. So suddenly this COVID comes in, and out of blue, campuses have been asked to be closed. The government made orders that public movement to be restricted, people to remain in their containment zones or areas, and all sorts of measures. So staff started working from home, and people did not pay much attention to the HDR students because nobody knew when this will finish, or when the COVID will go away. So everyone was more interested in knowing what's happening next. And secondly, people thought it's a break from work, we can just relax for a while. So based on FNU experiences, I believe for 2 or 3 weeks, people had no idea what's happening, and they were on holiday mood. So students and staff connection was lost. So students also did not, think along the lines of the time frame, and then did not have much information on the opening of the campuses and so forth. So this is when the university started mapping strategies, and they started to think along the lines how we can revive the student and the supervisor relationship, because the HDR programs need to continue. So at the same time, there was an influx in research on COVID-19 and online learning, and people started writing what can be done, what measures can be taken, and how we can bring the student back to the university life. So that's when we all started to think along the lines, and our main task was to bring the students back into the research culture. I'm sorry, I don't know what's happening here, this line. Anyway, so the students started coming to the university life via online mode, and then we got to learn a lot of things about online learning and face-to-face learning. That's when people started comparing that. Some said that face-to-face was better, or some said that the online programs are better. So basically, it was we were migrating or transitioning from traditional learning and shifting to new forms of getting knowledge, that is basically online learning and online education, or online doing HDR programs via online. And research shows that research disintegrity can be high with online mode than face-to-face mode. And also online mode can be more cost effective than face-to-face, or face-to-face meeting was basically sort of a commonplace for HDR students. And students can do independent work, or basically online can be a commonplace for HDR students, and they can prepare their own plan and work on the research independently. So research also shows that students preferred face-to-face learning based on research on 2,196 students from 29 Australian universities. Online structure can be beneficial, providing clear and coherent structure of learning and supporting self-regulated learning. And face-to-face learning enhances interpersonal relations, bringing student and supervisor closing and admitting student in the research culture. Openness is there. However, student can be over-reliant on the supervisor. Online On online mode, there can be lack of support from supervisors. It takes time for supervisors to respond, and there is no face-to-face interaction. What I've tried to do, I've tried to put everything here. So it sparks our mind that, when I will be discussing the advantages of online mode, we can just go back to think along the lines what we used to do in the traditional setting or through the face-to-face mode. And many research talks about the advantages of online learning and disadvantages of online learning. Many research talks about the advantages of traditional learning and disadvantages of traditional learning. The fundamental aim here for me is to inform you all through this seminar what are the advantages of online HDR program and how we can strengthen these. And I'm going to provide the examples from Fiji National University. So in summary, strategies, traditionalists use face-to-face platform, and technologists now have started using the online or the digital platform. And like research methodology, each has its own strengths and weaknesses. Similarly, the traditionalist or the face-to-face has its own strengths and its weaknesses. And also the technologies, the online digital programs have its own strengths and weaknesses. However, in this seminar, I'm going to discuss more about this pragmatic approach, whereby practical approaches and solutions, which will be factored in, ones that will work in practice as opposed to being ideal in theory. We have to move with time, with challenges, with problems. Problems are our friends. This is why the first thing comes in the research topic: what is the problem statement? Where is the problem? So we need to determine the problem and work in such a way that we accommodate the pragmatic approach. That is, what is the right fit at that particular time? And in this particular time, the right fit, I believe, and in practice, is the delivery of the higher degrees by research program via online mode. Whatever modes we are using, the fundamental aspect which should come to our mind is research integrity. Research integrity basically deals with the principles of responsible research, the conduct of research, the transparency aspect, the accountability aspect, the rigorous, the fairness, the ethical concerns, and which all should lead to the promotion of responsible research practices. Australian research guidelines clearly inform that there are 367, I think, yeah. I apologize for the wrong numbering. The 7 most fundamental aspects that should be taken into consideration are honesty in the development, undertaking, and reporting of research; rigor, that is accuracy and thoroughness in the development, undertaking, and reporting of research; transparency in declaring interest and reporting research methodology, data, and findings; 4th, fairness in the treatment of others, which deals with research ethics; 5th, respect for research participants, the wider community, animals, and the environment, that again deals with research ethics; accountability for the development, undertaking, and reporting of research; and finally, promotion of responsible research practice. What I want to say here is that whether we are embracing on traditional face-to-face HDR program or online HDR program, or using both the blended mode, that is face-to-face where required and online mode where required, we still need to accommodate the research integrity fundamental approach. right? Whereby our research, is of rigor in nature. It's done thoroughly and is reported appropriately. So in strengthening the supervisor and student relationship for online HDR program, a supervisor is responsible for guiding the HDR candidate and completing the HDR program from the start to the end. In taking the responsibility, the supervisor makes a firm and significant commitment to guiding and assisting the HDR students in achieving all the milestones. Therefore, supervisors are required to perform specific responsibilities. Please take note that if supervisors become irresponsible, they do not cater for the students' needs, we cannot have these HDR programs completed online. I'm aware that a university in Fiji has so many students who have not completed the HDR program, and they have spent almost 10 years doing the PhD program. 10 years. And when we go in depth to find out the reasons, a lot of concerns are emerging that supervisors were not responsible. The supervisors did not assist the student. The supervisors did not provide proper guidance, and there was no fixed framework to guide the students. So at Fiji National University, based on that information, we tried to organize everything in a very structured way. So we started first with the supervisors and relayed the responsibilities of the supervisor. What you have to do. These are the various, or the core or the key roles you have to play before you are assigned supervision. As academics, we need to be responsible, and then only we should take students on board. So various strategies and mechanisms have been put in place to see that supervisor helps the student, guides the student, and takes the student to completion. Supervisors are basically mentors, advisors, and through experience, they mold the students into individual and independent researchers. That's the responsibility of the supervisor, to guide the student to become an independent researcher. It's not that supervisors will be doing the work. They should be continuously interacting with the students, providing support, providing effective feedback, and taking student forward and meeting all the milestones. So at FNU, these are the steps which we have laid down for the supervisor, whereby the supervisor has to induct the student in the respective program and assess students' requirements for preparatory course and or any bridging course that the student may be required to do to undertake the program. We do not take students anyhow. The student should be prepared. If the student does not meet the MER, we provide further assistance to the students, for example, preparatory. It's our responsibility as supervisors to inform the student of the FNU higher degrees by research policy and procedures. In this case, for everyone, you may apply your own institution's higher degrees by research policy and procedures. And let the student know that the relevant policies and procedures that govern the HDR programs in the particular institution. The student should know. Advise the students on the rules of engagement and plan and outline with time frame. The outline must include timeframes of probationary candidature, mid-candidature confirmation, and completion seminar, and the submission of thesis, examination of thesis, oral examination, and the end of the candidature. If these things are planned well, we plan this with the students, then students are on track. It becomes the supervisor's responsibility to inform the student of candidature confirmations, deferral of candidatures, leave applications, and all the other rules which shall apply. The most important thing at FNU, which we do, we request all the HDR students to at least meet the supervisors to discuss the progress, provide constructive yet positive feedback. The supervisors have to provide the feedback and provide support in areas of weaknesses demonstrated by the students to maintain satisfactory academic progress. There is a form design that is known as Student-Supervisor log form. Both the students and the supervisors have to sit together, fill the form, address the concerns, and sign off the form. Why we do this? So that supervisors do not suppress students. Students know what they are writing. Supervisors may agree or do not agree. This everything can be happening via online. And at this time, we are asking everyone to do it. This is mandatory, and people are doing it. So everything is happening online. Students, supervisors have to discuss, confirm, and record all the discussions and the meetings with the students, and then forward it to the researcher. We study these, we analyze these, and where possible, we contact the students and supervisors. Supervisors are required to advise students in participating in the doctoral program and any other mandatory requirements, example, referencing softwares or any other programs which are deemed necessary for the students to participate in. Fiji National University has designed a doctoral program for its higher degrees by research students, whereby we provide short courses to students to develop skills in research areas and skills in associated with research. For example, data analysis, skills, short courses on data interpretation, short courses on using referencing software and so forth. It becomes our responsibility to assist students. Furthermore, we request students to continuously monitor students' work and provide half-yearly and annual report so that we can determine student success and where students are failing, or we can address how we can overcome the challenges or how we can help the students. We also ask supervisors to provide support to students in presenting the proposal, meeting the first milestone, and it becomes the supervisor's responsibility to induct the student, to help the student to prepare the proposal, and to organize the panel and assist the student to present and defend the proposal to the panel. The supervisor continuously is required to guide the student in identifying relevant literature and its sources, developing a theoretical and a conceptual framework, help the students to design the hypotheses, aims, objectives, research questions, and so forth. And keep on informing the student the principles of the principles of responsible research. Furthermore, we urge supervisors to assist and provide guidance to students who are or may be at risk during the candidature period and report to the higher degrees by research committee via researcher. We use the student supervisor meeting log form and the students' half-yearly and annual report to assess where the student is assess the students' performance, and if we find that students are at risk, we try to provide assistance to the students. Once the student is admitted as a confirmed candidate, it becomes the supervisor's responsibility to assist the students in attaining ethics approval from any other department or government ministry to conduct research, and also help students to make application for research funding, grants, and assist them to be on track, so that they can do things on time, because students cannot go into the field. So it becomes the supervisor's responsibility to prepare the student, inform them well in advance. As soon as the student is admitted admitted to the program, his candidature is confirmed, the supervisor should timely inform the student the next steps, what the student needs to be doing. Once the ethics approval is attained, the funding is secured, the supervisor should start providing direction to the student on fieldwork. What type of data the student should be collecting, what methodological approach the student should be employing, how the student should be administering their research. We must note or take note the students are new. They know very little about research, and it is the supervisors who should be guiding the students. Supervisor's responsibility is also to bring the student into the research culture, into the academic domain, whereby they must motivate students to publish their work as they progress. Supervisors are responsible for advising the students as to when and whether the thesis is ready for submission based on the expected requirements, standards, and readiness for acceptance. Prepare the student for completion seminar and start working with the student for the submission of the thesis. Supervisors are responsible for nominating external examiners, providing guidance to students, what issues examiners may point out, what issues may be raised, and how you may tackle these issues. They must inform the students the criteria on which they are assessed. Many students do not know how they will be assessed, what the examiners will be looking for, and so forth. And post-examination, assist the student in doing corrections. They should sit down with the students and plan the correction a way forward. Once this is done, the supervisor should guide and prepare the student for oral presentation or the viva voce. Post-viva, assist the students on minor and major corrections, write-ups as directed by examiners, and resubmit the thesis where necessary. At the same time, they should always be continuously bringing the student in the research culture and helping the students to publish in ranked journals. Actively participate in professional development sessions, mentoring schemes, and supervisor training programs to ensure knowledge and compliance with the university's HDR programs and procedures. Fiji National University has the supervisor training program developed whereby all supervisors need to go through this training program, so they are aware of the policies and procedures. If I'm going to ask the supervisors at FNU to please read all the policies, nobody's going to read. So if they do not read the policies, they do not know what to do. Every day I have emails that how to do this, what it is all about. Is there a policy? So with this email traffic, we thought to develop a supervisor training program whereby we bring in all the policies so that supervisors can understand about the policy. Furthermore to this, FNU is continuously engaged in providing seminars to supervisors, asking supervisors to join in webinar sessions on various to enhance and develop various research skills. So we are continuously providing support to supervisors so that supervisors understand the roles and responsibilities and they guide students appropriately. This is one aspect. The other aspect is that students are equally responsible. I wasn't told anything in terms of responsibility what I have to do. So I was just doing things as I thought is okay with me. So now what FNU has done, it has outlined certain responsibilities that the student must fulfill. Reason being, the student makes the most critical decision on the HDR program. It's not the supervisor who is enrolled in the HDR program. It is the student who is enrolled in the HDR program and is responsible for making a significant commitment to the quality supervision. If students do not speak, if students do not tell the problems, if students do not advise the supervisors accordingly what the challenges they are facing, supervisors will not know, will not be able to provide assistance, will not be able to provide immediate and effective feedback to overcome the problem. So what FNU has done, FNU has outlined specific responsibilities to the students, and when the students are inducted in the program, they are asked to read. And before the resumption of the HDR program, the research office takes the students through the responsibilities which are outlined for the HDR students, and we will be implementing this in semester 1 come 2022, sorry. So students must be aware of the responsibilities, whereby we provide them information that they need to understand the program in which they are enrolling. They need to understand the rules, the regulations, the policies and procedures that govern the HDR program. They must agree to the university's terms and conditions of enrollment each year. Students are required to re-enroll. It's not that it's automatically they are admitted in the program, so it's done. They have to re-enroll, and the re-enrollment is based on the progress report. Students are told about their milestones. They have to walk out the plan with the supervisor. They have to agree and adhere to the plan. They need to meet the supervisors on fortnightly basis. They need to talk to the supervisors and fill in the supervisor and the student meeting log form. They need to produce and submit work in the timely manner. They also need to understand that supervisors are not just sitting down and waiting for their draft chapter. They have got other work. They are teaching, they are engaged in research, and at the same time, they have taken the responsibility to supervise. So, students do not know this. The majority of students do not know this. So we have to provide these information so they are aware of their responsibility. Students are to carry out all remedial work and provide feedback to the supervisors within the specified time frame. At times, we need to be strict with students that, look, this is the time frame which you have to work for particular topic, particular chapter or the research fieldwork. They need to discuss with the supervisors if they are facing with any problem. For example, they want to defer the candidature, they need leave, they need to talk to the supervisor. Students need to adhere to the ethical requirements and practices, including ethical and responsible research conventions. Do we know, how can we basically assume that students know everything? It's our responsibility to educate them that this is what you are required to do. Students need to be informed about the ethics of research, the data management, how they will collect data, how they will store data, and how they are going to back up this data, the confidentiality aspects. Students also need to understand on informed research that participants will be participating on voluntary basis. There needs to be their consent so that they can engage in the research. There are various things which we need to continuously, it's not one-off, we need to continuously inform the students that you need to do this. Remember, students are the ones who are going to break the rules. They are going to break the rules. So we need to keep on reminding them about the research procedures, the research processes. It becomes our responsibility to help them to check their thesis, to do similarity checks before submitting the thesis. We need to inform them that the student need to follow the regulations. We need to prepare the students for the oral presentation, what it is all about, how it will be convened, how the oral presentation will be conducted. And we need to make use of all mechanisms available to assist the student in completing the HDR program. This, what I have said, is basically about the student and the supervisor responsibility. Both parties can fulfill the responsibility, whether they are involved with face-to-face research, whether they are involved with online research, or they are involved with both face-to-face and online. So they can use blended mode or traditional mode or face-to-face. This is what FNU does in terms of HDR supervision. The research itself, the HDR program, is divided into 3 modes. One is Prefield, one is Infield, and one is Postfield. During these times, turbulent and uncertain times, the entire HDR program can be completed by online mode. Let's see how. Prefield, this is where student works on the project, on the research, preparing for proposal defense, and everything is done online. FNU's online approach is to provide support and resources. We go from the very basic, admit the students based on the MER, request the IDRs, deans to allocate supervisors for the students. We connect the supervisor and the student. They have this session, they discuss, they plan their work, they both come to an agreement. Students' prior research knowledge is assessed. Where required or necessary, students are assigned to preparatory courses, and at the same time, the supervisor assists the student in writing the proposal. Once the proposal is done, the supervisor assists the student for the proposal defense and helps the students in meeting the first milestone, candidature confirmation. This also happens via online. Students work on the research proposal, consulting the supervisor. Supervisor prepares students for the proposal defense, tells the nitty-gritty, what is required and so forth, and then takes the students through the candidature confirmation process. The students work on the background, introductory, context, literature review, methodology chapters, all via online. Students meet the supervisors via Zoom, via email, or any other mechanisms using the digital platform. Then the next one is the Prefield and Infield. This is where the student prepares the methodology or the methodological administration. The supervisor assists the students in attaining ethics approval. The supervisor guides the student in choosing the research tools or the instruments. The supervisor helps the students in pilot testing the research tools, and where possible, if the survey can be done online, the supervisor assists the students in collecting the data online. Exception, this cannot be done online, which includes field work or laboratory experiments and so forth. This is the only exception whereby the student has to be in the field, or where the student intends to administer the qualitative methodological approach to get the qualitative data, which deals with questionnaires and face-to-face interaction, focus groups meetings, and so forth. But this also can be done online via Zoom sessions, Skype, and chats. Once this is done, the supervisor again is responsible to take the student to the mid-candidature confirmation assessment. The supervisor organizes the student and checks if the student is, determines if the student is ready for the candidature confirmation process. The supervisor organizes the panel. The supervisor prepares the student and guides the students to meet the conditions of the mid-candidature confirmation. Once this is done, the supervisor meets the student, draws a plan to improve on the progress, or improve on the project. And the improvements should be coming from the mid-candidature review or the assessors who provides feedback to the students. Then post-field, this can also be done online. Once the student gathers the data, everything can be done online, as long as the student and supervisor interact. The student does the data analysis, records the finding, and does the discussion and the conclusion chapter. The supervisor provides all the feedback, and student works on his or her thesis. The next milestone, or the last milestone, is completion seminar. Once the student, when the student is ready, they go for a completion seminar, and the supervisor gets involved. The supervisor informs the students if the student is ready for the completion seminar. The supervisor again organizes the panel, prepares the students for the completion seminar, and guides the student through achieving this milestone. Once the completion seminar is done, supervisor again comes in, proposes for thesis examination, nominates the external examiners, does the similarity check, assists the student in determining the readiness for submission, and then submits the thesis. The student gets the thesis, the supervisor comes again into the picture, reviews the examiner's report, sits down with the student and plans for the correction. Both the supervisor and the students draw a matrix, and the matrix on which they have to work in terms of correction. The supervisor guides the student on doing the corrections and meeting examiner's requirement, and where required, resubmits the thesis or prepares the students for the viva voce or the oral examination. You may understand from my presentation that the FNU's HDR program is designed in such a way that everything can be done online. Number two, we intend to maintain research integrity through the checks, and the checks are in the forms of 3 milestones, that is candidature confirmation, mid-candidature confirmation, and completion seminar. This is not where everything stops. After the student's thesis have been submitted, the student has to go through the oral defense. This is where the student presents and defends his thesis. So when we include all these checks, the 3 milestones and the defense mechanism, including monitoring of students' meeting log, students' progress reports, we intend to maintain highest level of research integrity. This is where, with these checks, we can assure that it is students onward. We can ensure that student contributed significantly. We can ensure that the student has done work to become an independent researcher and has been molded in such a way that upon getting the award, or when the student is being awarded the degree, is able to do research on his or her own. Thank you. We can have comments, professional criticism, questions and answers. And if you want to contact me, my contact details are there. Thank you everyone for your patience and listening to this session. Please take note that my main aim was to inform that how the FNU program can strengthen the HDR programs and its continuity on online mode. Thank you.